welcome to Fiber Trek. My name is Sarah, and I am so glad that you decided to return or you have decided to give it a try and check out the podcast. So thank you so much for taking some time to spend with me to talk about fiber. I am, as usual, surrounded by dogs. You may hear Fern in the background. She's right here. We're vying for that draft space again. And Chloe is curled up here, and I'm not sure if you can see Belle behind me, but I think she's right there. She's a little dark spot. We have just had a pretty interesting spat of weather, which continues to be interesting. We had a blizzard roll through this other part of the state, nor'easter, and dumped about 2 feet of snow for them with some pretty intense winds. We got around 8 to 10 inches, which is par for the course for this area, but the real significant difference was the wind. So I was off yesterday, I'm off today, and I'm taking advantage of that to get a little bit of work done and catch up with the podcast. And so in some ways it's been a bit of a, I don't want to use the word godsend, but who doesn't appreciate a little bit of extra time that isn't dominated by work or other obligations. So I'm just home with my dogs, and some of you may know I'm home with fruitcake that the boy made yesterday. We make this, it's called the Conover fruitcake, and the Conovers were a couple, and I still believe they lead trips in Maine, and they did a lot of trips, wilderness trips that were done without synthetic materials in the old way, old or primitive way. I don't really know the adjective that best describes that, but they had cotton anoraks. Some of you saw me post a picture of my husband's Steger muckluck, so moose hide bottoms, canvas uppers, wool felt liners. Those boots are awesome. They're very, very warm, wind resistant, and very good for temperatures like we're having right now, which is very cold, dry snow. So those went out the door this morning. I was going to show you. Anyway, they have this fruitcake recipe, which my husband loves, and it's full of apricots and dates and figs and walnuts and pecans and honey and maple syrup, eggs. We use dry buttermilk, but they call for dry milk. I can't remember. And then cardamom, nutmeg, ginger. It's really delicious. So don't let the word fruitcake maybe throw you off. Anyway, that with a cup of black, strong black hot tea is just the trick for these types of days in Maine. So we've been enjoying that after bringing the dogs in. I think literally yesterday I couldn't see in front of me. I was worried about Bella getting hit because I couldn't keep an eye on her. People weren't really able to see us. The trail we normally walk on was too drifted in to get the dogs in. So it was a bit of a bust for the dogs yesterday. As soon as I finish recording this podcast, we're going to head outside. You may see some restlessness prior to that. When we've had a really great turnout of birds this year. The year before last, so 2 years ago, I had an amazing flock of red poles. And red poles are an Arctic bird, or they summer in the Arctic and they come down, and they may be here year-round. I'd have to look at my bird book. Anyway, they're very sweet. They look like the same size as a chickadee. They have little red caps, and the males have a little bit of red on their breast, and really fun to have around. Anyway, they're back. They've come with a bunch of pine siskins, which kind of look like goldfinch or American finch in their winter colors, their drab colors. Anyway, the pine siskin have like little yellow bars on them. They're very sweet. And the red poles will often team up with them. So anyway, they've been hanging out here, and it's been really exciting. And then my ducks are still here. Some of you may have just seen my picture on Instagram. The squirrels are not amused. This is what I posted. The squirrels are not amused, and we're pretty bemused because really there's ice, there's no food source, and they're eating our black sunflower seeds, and I would prefer that they move along. I do need to go out, and the thing with having these big flocks of the red poles and the siskins is that they will consume vast amounts of seed, and so I need to top off the feeders regularly throughout the day. So I go out in the morning, I go out in the afternoon, and then sometimes in the evening if I need to, or I want it to be replenished for the morning. And my I know I'm tangenting a bit about my wildlife because I can see them from here. My flying squirrel was here right before the blizzard. He comes like every probably 4 days maybe. They're a dormant animal, so they'll sleep a little bit, wake up a little bit. They're not an active per se animal, and I think even my squirrels can go through periods of dormancy, but anyway, he was here fueling up before the storm, so I always like to have something out there for him too, or her. Anyway, did I say welcome? I think I did. New and returning viewers, tangent, check. And we've had an introduction in the introductions thread. And I would welcome people to go ahead and introduce yourself into that thread, because I very much enjoy it. And I'm not sure how other people use that thread, but for me, I like to see the variety and hear what you like, and even see if there's other connections or ways to chat, not just about fiber. For example, Spinnerin made a comment in the last episode thread about her guard dogs, and we share that in common. And we probably share a lot more in common about how we feel about our dogs, which I'm very pack bound to them. I don't like to be without them. I don't like to leave them. I think many of us share that. And having livestock guardian dogs, having used them as livestock guardian dogs, having retired them, it's just a common thread I wouldn't necessarily have known. So reaching out in those types of ways can lend support for a variety of things. My dogs are aging. I started to cry. I'm going to cry a little bit. And in her thread, she showed pictures of her Daphne, which was her livestock guardian dog, who was an Anatolian Shepherd. So you can see I'm getting a little weepy because I just love dogs. So I don't know, it was just really great to see that and be like, oh yeah, these dogs are really important, and there are people out there who understand that type of work that they do and how invaluable it is. Anyway, I'm tangenting again about livestock guardian dogs. So thank you. Joy Harmon introduced herself. I think that's where I was going with this comment. Joy Harmon introduced herself. She is from Taiwan. That was how that little tangent came about for, figuring out where people actually live. And she says the island is not very nitty, and she enjoys the podcast community for the connections she can make, which same here. I'm kind of isolated. And she very much enjoys the history elements and learning about the fiber industry. So thank you so much, Joy, for introducing yourself in the thread, and welcome to the group. So glad that you're able to tap into this resource, even on your small island, and get your fix of fiber. I have my notes right here. And thank you in general for all the great connections via Ravelry in the group, or Instagram, Facebook, all of those social media sites where people find a chance to comment or just offer up insight. I really appreciate it. I had 2 new reviews, I think a while ago on iTunes, which I don't check because I didn't have them for a long time. I have 7-star ratings, which is so fantastic, and they were all very positive things. So thank you very much for to Kamanoa and you name it, Stashless and Sarah Pomegranate, for putting out a rating or a review. Did I lose my scarf on that side? I'm actually getting warm. A rating or a review. I really appreciate it. I know I don't talk about it very much. And other podcasters are much better about encouraging their viewers to go out and make a review, have a comment for their favorite podcasts, and I probably would encourage you to do the same. So it bumps us up in the iTunes, I don't know what word I'm looking for. Anyway, so people can find you. So thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Let's see. Thank you for all the great connections. Oh, and thank you very much for the comments regarding last episode's reflection on knit-alongs and giveaways. I really appreciate the feedback. I know I say that a lot, but I do. I really do. I really, really do. I really appreciate the feedback that you had to offer, and I will continue to do what I'm doing as I'm doing it and be happy in my work. And I think doesn't that Scrooge say that about the poor and the Christmas Carol, that they should be, I can't remember, I'll have to look that quote up then. Be happy in your work. I can't remember, from the George C. Scott version. Anyway, that did not go unnoticed, and we'll continue forward. If I suddenly jump away, it's because the little birds have been hit. We leave the screens in these front windows so they can kind of have a little bit of a buffer before the glass. But if anybody bounces, I'd like to go out and just make sure they get right back up so they don't fall in the snow and get cold. All right, have I tangented enough? This week I have finished objects. Oh, I know you're like, what could she possibly have finished? She just did a sweater and a shawl. Well, it's not knitting. That's something I forgot to tell you last week. I have works in progress. I have spinning, acquisitions and discoveries, and I have a megaphone a minute, and I'm not Morgan. So I think I can probably push right through this and still get these guys out in time. There's a lot of panting going on because we're anticipating the WALK. Coey is really not that bothered. I don't know if you can see him. This is going to get a little jerky. I don't know if I can get it down. There he is. Not really much for activity or walking. Let's put it that way. I have to use treaties to entice him out. So sorry about the jerkiness. All I can see is my face. Sorry. There. Did I move this? All I can see is my face because my hair is so dark it blends into the background, so I have no idea until I actually view it how it looks. So anyway, I finished my Sami bracelet, and here it is. Is that gonna give you an idea? I'm just gonna rotate it once. There's my button. And I have had requests from other family members for one. So I think I'm going to put in an order to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd like another one. I'd like to do one for my hair, like a headband. Maybe do all of this. And then on my ends, tack in an elastic. So it has a little bit of give to get over my head. And then, I don't know. I got to think about that. And then I also saw on Etsy someone had done this and then put it on a hair barrette. And I thought about doing that. And somebody had done earrings, which I thought were very cool. So anyway, I'm going a little Sami bracelet bonkers, but I figured if I'm going to make the order and family is going to help pay for shipping and cost, that I would just go big or go home. So anyway, that's a great finished object. I get lots of compliments on it. I've already told you that. I love this thing. I have to remember to take it off when I shower. And when I do the dishes, I just push it up. And it seems to have, it seems to stay pretty dry, which is the key thing. That's what Disa had mentioned in her tutorial. So this was a craft along I did with Disa of Disa's Craft Work podcast. The tutorials are still on YouTube. And the craft along, you can still participate and get tips and be a part of the project. So if you get stuck, she's still available for support. And so that's my finished object. I am wearing today, although the fire is starting to take off. You can see Belle's kind of roasting her head there, I think. This is the Another Door Opens shawl, and I haven't had a chance to wear this in public yet. I've been wearing it a lot at home. What I really like about it is it does just sit on the shoulders really nicely. And this I knit out of alpaca. The design is by Sarah Pomegranate or Sarah Bauer of Yarns at Yinhu, and it's been great. I'm wearing it inside out, but no bother. Let's go right to works in progress. So last time I talked to you, I was planning to cast on, and I hadn't cast on, the Red Rock Canyon shawl by Romy Hill. And I'm not sure if it's going to pick it up here. Yes, maybe. Anyway, gives you a basic gist. This is a 2-color lace shawl. And I'm knitting that with One Lupin's Promenade base. I'm a little confused about the base because they both say Promenade, but one's a 2-ply lace weight, which is a merino silk 80-20, and one is a fingering weight Promenade, which is a merino yak silk 50-25-25 merino. Merino's the 50%, which is a fingering. Anyway, here it is. This is what I've got so far. This being the top of the shawl, so comme ça. And I've just started the bigger lace panels in the contrasting color. The green is her lichen colorway, and the gray is called Fig. And I took a lot of advice from other knitters on the Ravelry pages, and I have implemented stitch markers, and I've done fairly well with my stitch counts. I've been happy with the stitch markers. They've been very helpful. And the lace repeats haven't been exceptionally complicated, so I can usually do the first couple repeats and then I'm good to go to the center, etc. So anyway, I like the way it's coming out, and that's what, 10 days? 10 days of knitting. So I'm not sure how I'm going to block this. In the winter it gets a little bit hard with these bigger shawls to block because of space. You may remember that this summer I blocked my Vedbeck by Karina Westerman on a big piece of foam board outside in the sunshine, and I could really stretch it and it dried instantly. It was great, so we'll have to see what I can rig for that shawl. I'm also casting on Windswept by Emily Wessels of Tin Can Knits out of her Handmade in the UK. And I can't remember if I showed this last time, but this is a great book. I think I did, as I said I wanted to knit all these things. But here it is. Hi. I'm always peeking out from behind things. And I'm going to knit that out of a Jameson and Shetland. I haven't cast it on. That's what I was driving at. I was going to cast it on and then kind of pick whichever one kind of took. And I just kind of took off with that shawl, and I haven't cast this on. But I do plan to cast it on today or tomorrow. And Shetland yarn, artichoke. I think it'll be great. This is the double knitting weight. I am knitting the Red Rock Canyon on a size US 6 4mm, and I plan to go up a needle size for the Windswept, so I'll be knitting that on a US 7 4.5mm. Emily recommends, or the designer recommends, that this be knit with negative ease, 1 to 3 inches of negative ease. So I'll be knitting the 34.5. I'm a little wary of this, but I was listening to Joe of Shiny Bees, who had done the Lush knit along with Knit British and I think Keith Smith's Craft Collective, Louise, and I don't remember if Yarns on the Plain participated in that. All great podcasts, by the way. Audio podcasts, and she was talking about how you have to just trust the pattern. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to knit it with the negative ease and hope for the best. So I think I covered. That's the whips. I know. That's kind of the boring part of my podcasting because I don't have a lot of things going on. Hopefully my progress will maintain the momentum that I've been having, and things will just be, I'll be like finished object woman. I have been spinning. Last time I had finished spinning the singles for the Cosmic Wonder Worm, and that was from Sarah Pomegranate. It was a Shetland Merino Corriedale Surrey Alpaca Poonies, and I finished the singles, and then I had chain plied what I had left so I could use it as an accent. And here it is. How fun is that? And I was so psyched to be able to repurpose my card from her. So anyway, I took that off, soaked it, and let it dry last night by the wood stove, which took all of 10 minutes to dry. God, I love wood heat. And so that is done. And then I put on the wheel some Jacob from Fondant Fiber, which this might be really hard to pick up, but this was from the Fiber Breed pack, and I'm gonna wind this off onto plastic bobbins for holding and 2-ply it and add it to the collection of the other breed specific mini skeins that I have, and I hope to somehow create the Puffin Cowl by Kate Davies. So I feel like I'm slowly picking up my spinning momentum, and that feels really good. So that was fun. Acquisitions and discoveries. I didn't actually acquire anything, but I have a couple discoveries I thought I would chat about. Some things that I've been reflecting on. You all right, love? As I knit other projects, places that I'd like to go with my knitting. And one of them is the stroker sweater really got me psyched about yokes. And I've always loved Icelandic sweaters and Icelandic yokes. I like the color work. I like the design of it. I like the yarns that are used for those sweaters. And so I'm really... 2 o'clock? I really want to knit a few more. I like the way they come together. They're fast knit. I don't know. I like the way they look. And so I've been Googling Kate Davies' yoke book for a while. And there's a couple in there I want to knit. But it's so funny. Like, of course, the one that catches my eye is the lace weight beaded yoke Frost at Midnight. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I love this sweater. It's so gorgeous. It's just so refined, and I just love everything about it. I think that it would be a masterpiece. I think it would be your epic masterpiece of knitting. So anyway, I kind of had written it off, and I was listening to Shiny Bees, and Joe was talking about Kate Davies' book and the sweater she wanted to knit, and Frost at Midnight came up. And she's going to do it. And she just, like, yeah, I'm going to knit that one. I was like, why am I holding back? I should jump on that bandwagon. I can't remember, but the numbers were very intimidating, not just the yardage, but the number of stitches, the yardage, the number of beads involved it's kind of like a yoke, and it's got beaded trees all along here. And so she really inspired me to just kind of let go of whatever nagging you can'ts were hanging around in there, and just kind of start researching out a yarn and maybe even cast it on, and not make it a project that I knit and from start to finish as a project, but a project, God forbid I should put on any weight during this epic journey, but a project that, I commit to knitting 5 inches, whatever, 3 rows, whatever. So I'm not like just kind of caught up in the longevity or the word tedious probably isn't the best descriptor for it, but that's the only one that comes to mind now. That I think that's what alarms me, is that it's just going to be tiny little stitches, thin little yarn, lots of beading. So you gotta, oh, you were such a, oh, you did, you bumped it just a little, but you did try. I'll move that for you. She's trying to get comfortable. So anyway, we'll see. I've been thinking about picking up some Jaeger spun. They do a 50-50 merino silk, and the yarn recommended in the pattern is Fiber Spates, which is I think it's a wool silk blend. And Jaeger spun is spun in Maine. The yarn and silk are not sourced in Maine, but it's spun here. And I've knit with their yarn before. I did a bird's nest shawl by Cheryl Oberly, which came out absolutely gorgeous. It took me 3 years to knit. In lace weight, held double, 2-tone color, but I should take heart from that, right? Like I did it. I actually did it. So anyway, some of you may know, speaking of like, starting this epic knitting journey and being one size when you start and being another size when you finish, like 20 years later, I have been doing the sugar detox, which basically means I eat 2 servings of fruit, like oranges or berries. I have a couple Wassa crackers. If you're not familiar with those, they're a European cracker which have a very low glycemic index count. You can eat like 4 of them and it equals 1 slice of bread. And then I have a lot of chicken and I have a lot of vegetables. And so I like start this detox diet, and I walk into the local drugstore and there is the biggest basket of Cadbury eggs. Now, you can't get Cadbury eggs year-round in this country. You can get the caramel Cadbury ones, and then they make this hideous Halloween thing But you cannot get the traditional Cadbury egg year-round. You can only get it at Easter. And I love Cadbury eggs. I like the big Cadbury eggs. I like to bite the top off. I like to lick out the inside, and I like to eat the last part. And I hoard them. I mean, stockpile them. I mean, like boxes and boxes, because I know that it's going to end and I'm not going to be able to get them again. And then on top of that, insult to injury, there's been some sort of spat. Don't have a lot of understanding of the political undertone of this, but they're changing the formula of Cadbury eggs to make them sweeter in the United States, I think. Hideous. And B, you're not going to be able to get the British, European Cadbury eggs in the US, that they're not going to import them anymore. And so it'll all be American Cadbury eggs. And I was just kind of like, I was so disheartened about this product because I love this product and it's special. So anyway, there was a big basket of Cadbury eggs and I didn't buy one. And it was really hard. And it was really hard not to buy a whole bunch because I knew that I want them, but I know if they're in the house, I'll eat them. So it was kind of a good on ya, to be able to walk by that basket of Cadbury eggs and deal with the anxiety of a finite product, that this will come to an end and I'm not participating in it right now. So anyway, I have had a Cadbury egg since, just one, as I'm going back on another 17 days of detox. But, oh man, it was really hard. So anyway, that I think what I was driving at was like, would this project take me as long, and would I not fit in it when I was done? And anyway, came and went. Now I'm like completely distracted by Cadbury eggs. So I'm curious to see what Jo is going to knit her Frost at Midnight out of. I'm looking for ideas. I don't know of any farm yarns that are specific to a local place and they're using their yarn. Maybe I'll look at Blacker and maybe some British yarns are having a little bit more luck with that. Like a blue-faced Leicester silk blend would be very cool because you get that drape of the long wool and the sheen of both of those materials. So anyway, I'll do my research, but if you have any ideas, you can certainly throw them in the thread. And more on this yoke kick, aside from Frost at Midnight, which is such a gorgeous sweater and delicate. Some of the other yokes I've been looking at are more in the rugged type zone of knitting and in the bulky weight, Aran worsted weights. And I was really thinking about yarns I'd love to work with in yoke patterns. And I've talked about 13 Mile Lamb and Wool Company before out of Montana. They're, I believe, a blue-faced Leicester base. And I love her plant dyed and natural colors. And I was thinking, about that. My cart was full. So I think I was talking about some of the yarns I'd like to work with for the yokes. One of them was the 13 Mile. She makes a bulky weight. I think there's a sport, a worsted, and a bulky. So I was like, yeah, that would be so much fun to work with her colors and have a beautiful yoke cardigan with some Montana raised blue-faced Leicester, plant dyed. And I was also thinking about Green Mountain Spinnery, which is one of my favorite yarns. I forgot to grab my hat and show you. I've had a hat for like 15 years. The thing looks as good as the day it was knitted. It doesn't have a pill on it. I ski in it. I snowblow in it. I mean, it has been through the ringer. It's been on expedition ski trips, multi-day. And so I think that their yarn, it's a mohair wool blend. I'm thinking of the mountain mohair, and has a lot of longevity and endurance. And so I think that for a yoke sweater would be gorgeous. And then I was thinking about Peace Fleece. So anyway, I think I'm going to endeavor. I've been stashing down quite a bit. My stash has been disappearing, which has been slightly disconcerting. I definitely like having a stash, and I like shopping from my stash. So I'm not always on the stash down brigade per se. I don't add a lot to it, but but I think I would like to set a financial goal of being able to invest in those three for each for a different yoke. And I think I'm going to invest in Kate Davies' yoke book because there's at least 3 patterns in there that I think two of which I think would be perfect for the 13 mile and the Peace Fleece and the Green Mountain. So anyway, I know that New Hampshire Knits Bluebell Carty has been really inspiring. She is an audio podcast, and she's been talking about her fondness for the Yoke Patterns book and her work with it. And so having Knit Stroker, and like I said, it was fey knitting. There was something very magical about it. I'm hoping I can capture that again with some other patterning. Also new for discoveries is I listen to Knit British, which I do like a mad woman. Whenever it comes out, I immediately cue it up. And she had a great interview with Karina Westerman, and Karina Westerman was the designer who did the Wedbeck shawl. And I also have her Hoxton in my queue, which may come after Windswept. So Louise did a great interview with her, and I would highly recommend you tuning into Knit British. She has a lot to say about great yarns, patterning, the industry, history. So, and she's funny. So take a listen to Knit British. What else do I have on here? Oh, and a great discovery was Chrissy, A Stitch Together, made a comment in the thread about the Kuani yarn and showed some examples of the work she's done with it, which was very enabling to me. There's a great color palette, very extensive color palette. I like toothy yarns, you already knew that. And so she said that after you knit it and bloom it up a bit, it almost becomes like a sport weight. But some really gorgeous photographs of her finished objects, so go take a look at that. I've never seen it in the U.S. I don't know if I can get it in the U.S., but I'm going to start to look and see. And if not, what I told Chrissy was I'm just going to start playing the lottery so I can afford all this international shipping. There's a lot of yarns in Britain that I would love to bring over. I use the term knit local kind of loosely. I like to use that term to kind of, I don't know if it's to shrink my fiber world or broaden my fiber world, but I like the idea of knitting with small mills, farm yarns, and those farm yarns can be farms in, Yorkshire. They can be farms in Tasmania, Falkland, Maine, Montana. But I like there to be a localness to it, not necessarily local to me. And so it's almost my way of traveling. I can't travel there necessarily, but I can certainly participate in their economy and the work and resource that they invest in. So I have a lot of British yarns that I want to import over here. I have a lot of yarns from all over the world, but I do have some blacker in my stash that is still waiting for the most perfect project, so we'll get to that soon enough. It's only just a taste of what the possibilities are. So that's really it, acquisitions and discoveries. I'm going to do a Megafauna Minute. I thought I might start alternating that with Textiles in Time. I really can't coordinate my schedule well with Morgan's to do recordings in a smooth and efficient manner. So I'm just going to take on a Megafauna Minute because I had some questions about bald eagles. I made a post on Instagram. The eagles were out here eating on the ice. And somebody made a comment about, is that megafauna? And I'm not sure if it is, but I thought I'd talk about it anyway.
It occurred to me that I didn't really describe bald eagles very well to perhaps people that don't know what they are. So I thought I would just insert a photo here and quickly describe them. I'm going to describe the adult patterning, which is white heads, brown bodies, and dark brown bodies and wings. Their bills are bright yellow, as are their legs, and they are a very large raptor, meaning they have talons, hooked bills. When they fly out, their wings are very broad and flat like a board, versus if you're familiar with hawks or falcons, osprey, they have sometimes more of a V within their wing patterning. So I just kind of wanted to give that element to you before I launched into my Megafauna Minute, so that we knew what we were talking about. And I'm looking quickly at the range map here, and we're looking at a range beginning in Alaska, all through northern Canada, East Coast, West Coast, and then throughout the mid-central, southwest areas of the United States and into Mexico. So just to give you an idea, the type of bird we're thinking about, and I do give some other stats. So back to your regularly scheduled program.
Their wingspan is taller than me, so that must make them mega. And also commented on the fact that how these birds have flourished and how they've come back from the brink of they were on the endangered species list in '78, and the comeback that they've actually made. So I thought I'd talk about them. I pulled up a great website which is all about birds. It's the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And so I just thought I would give you a few tips. I decided not to rewrite it all down and memorize it when it's just right here, and you can certainly go and look. And they do this for all species of North American birds. I think maybe it's South America too, or the Americas, I should say, because Central is in there. One thing about bald eagles, which is what kind of pushed this conversation, is that they typically are scavengers, but they also will steal food. So I have on here sneaky or smart. We typically leave our pickerel out when we're ice fishing for the eagles. Pickerel are somewhat invasive species. They tend to feed on the native brook trout or trout in general, and so hauling them out and leaving them for the eagles feels like we're participating in a life cycle that we're comfortable with. So they'll steal from other birds. They'll steal from osprey. They'll snatch fish right out of other raptors' talons. So they're aggressively scavengeristic. If that makes sense. We know that we'll find them around water. Hence their propensity for this area. There's a lot of rivers and lakes, and these eagles know that on Saturdays and Sundays is a big ice fishing time on this particular pond, and so that's when they'll cruise. I don't see them typically cruising throughout the week, but on Saturday and Sunday they show up, they figure out what's here, they may come back on a Monday, but for the most part these guys are dialed in onto when people are out and about and leaving fish. It's common practice for fishermen to leave pickerel out. So let's see, the largest bird, this was very interesting. The largest bald eagle nest on record was in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was 2.9 meters in diameter and 6.1 meters tall. Another famous nest weighed in at almost 2 metric tons. So big birds, big nests, big presence, just really interesting. It was, eagles will return to their nest and over and over again. So so that similar to osprey. And this particular 2 metric ton nest was used for 34 years until the tree blew down. Bald eagles can live a long time with a longevity record of 28 years in the wild and 36 years in captivity. And they occasionally will hunt cooperatively. One of the things they talked about in here is notes on eagle play. That bald eagles have been observed playing with plastic bottles, and that one group of 6 bald eagles was observed in the air playing with a stick, dropping it, catching it, dropping it, catching it. So I thought that was really interesting. I've had a lot of experiences with bald eagles, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and, oops, sorry, Fern's just getting comfortable. One of the most profound ones, well, I had 2. One was I had picked up 2 sheep to add to the flock at my parents', and I had lost one of my favorite and dear girls. So we were picking up these new sheep to bring them in, and 2 eagles flew overhead and locked talons and spiraled down to the earth, which is a mating ritual. And they did it right over my dog's grave, Smokey, and they landed right on his grave, which is marked, and took off again and did the same thing, and were calling, and we were very taken aback. Mom was like, "Are they going to pick up the sheep?" And I was like, "I don't think so," but we were just a little bit like, "Wow," and we were disconcerted, put it that way. So I had that experience, which was awe-striking, and then one day I was out here raking leaves, and an eagle came and sat. We have a big pine right here. Eagle came and sat in that tree and just yacked and called for like 20 minutes. And I thought I would play for you their sound, which is Cocos. Are you dreaming? Let's do the chatter. We'll do the chatter call. Burn. Oh, that wasn't such a good idea. Okay, Bernie, I'll stop. It's enough, honey. I'll stop. Fern doesn't like crows either. She hears crows or sees crows fly overhead. She just flips out, which is actually a good thing. One of the problems, which this might be too graphic, FYI, one of the problems that we had on the island with sheep, not necessarily something that we used livestock guardian dogs for, but when sheep would roll over on their backs, sometimes they wouldn't be able to get up, and they would bloat, which would make it even harder for them to get up. Get enough momentum to rock their body forward. And when a ruminant is on its side, because of all that gas that they use to digest their food, that builds up, and that's called bloat. We need to release that gas. Get them up, get their cud going, get them regurgitating, get things moving. They have a number of 4 stomachs. So, and these bonksy, that's not the correct name, it's a local name. These big skuas, Arctic skuas and gulls, types of gulls, would come down and pick out their eyes while they were there. And Fern would scare these types of scavengers away from my sheep, which is a great thing. If you have a sheep that bloats, that gets on its side, can't get up, and you've got your guard dog who hates crows, she's not going to this is my perception, of course, she's not going to let them hang around. She doesn't like ravens, and she doesn't like crows. Anyway, sorry if that's a little bit too graphic for sensitive ears, but bloat is something that can be remedied. It's one reason you have to be fairly vigilant, which is why we were vigilant with the sheep, keeping an eye on them and making sure that everybody was flipped the right way. Let's see. I wanted to just talk a little bit about life history of our eagles. So we got to hear them. That's the call that he was making when I was out raking the leaves and hanging out for a long time. So wingspan on these guys is 80.3 inches or 204 centimeters. And they can weigh 105 to 222 ounces or 3,000 to 6,300 grams. It's one of the largest birds in North America, and its wingspan is slightly greater than a great blue heron, if you're familiar with that family of birds. So, bald eagles typically nest in forested areas near large bodies of water. They like fish, but they take their prey live, fresh, or as carrion. Carrion is a fancy word for roadkill or dead. Or they're powerful flyers, soaring, gliding, and flapping over long distances. In one of several spectacular courtship displays, a male and a female fly high into the sky, lock talons, and cartwheel down, which is what we were able to observe. Here's an interesting fact that I picked up. One that they're capable of floating, and so when they will go in, they can do what's called like a deep water wading, and they can use their wings to move through the water. Again, slightly disconcerting to me. I think it's awesome, but I'm also like, wow, so they can row over water. And then conservation. So eagles were trapped, hunted, and then were very much affected by pesticide use from beginning in the early 1900s. In 78, they were put on the endangered list, and they have really bounced back. I think the global population right now, breeding population, is 250,000 birds, with 88% spending some part of the year in the US, 31% in Canada, and 8% in Mexico. And our eagles are year-round, so they can manage winters here, unlike some birds that have to migrate. In 1978, the bird was listed for protection under the Endangered Species Act, and since 1980, gentler treatment by humans, along with the banning of DDT, have led to a dramatic resurgence. By the late 1990s, breeding populations of the bald eagle could be found throughout most of North America. And in June 2007, the bird's recovery prompted its removal from the endangered species list. So what a great positive story, and that there is power in change, and we have the ability to do that. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed with all the wrong and pieces of actions and consequences. I remember hearing an article in NPR about how the pileated woodpecker wouldn't be around by the time that I had children, or something horrible statistic like that. And I was like, well, great. What do you do with that information? I would so much rather be fed information that's proactive and active. I don't want to know necessarily. I'm pretty aware of consequences right now. But what I really would love to learn more about is what's being done and how to be proactive in that conservation realm. I have a great nonprofit here, which is Aviary Haven. Oh. Anyway, they are a nonprofit and they work for bird support. They'll take jays, they'll take ducks, they'll take, it's not just kind of the majestic predators. It's, interesting birds. It's everybody. And I have called them 3 times for bird rescues that I've been able to manage on my own. And they always finish their phone conversation, which just brings tears to my eyes. Thank you for caring about the birds. And I'm always like, gosh, you're welcome. They have a network in this state. So if you have an injured bird that you can't necessarily take care of, that you can, they have what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a carpool, but I'll drive to a point, then the driver picks it up and he drives it to a point to get it down there. Kind of like a carpool chain. So if you can't make an investment to drive 2 hours to get to the bird sanctuary, they have volunteers throughout the state who will leapfrog the bird there. So that's great. And they rehabilitate all sorts of birds. And anyway, I had a jay, I had a duck issue, and I've saved a ton of birds from windows and those types of things. So, and they have, they also have a list of things you can donate, like cleaning supplies and those types of things. And so I think Rob and I are going to we're going to make a little donation to them, because we really feel like the work that they do is valuable, especially for the lay person. I'm not a wildlife rehabilitator. So to be able to have a phone, to be able to call and get information and advice and work together to save a chickadee, I mean, that feels like, valuable and admirable work. So anyway, that's just a little bit about bald eagles. You got their stats and a little bit about their habitat, which forests, lakes, and they're found pretty extensively throughout at least North America. I think that's all I have. I think it's a fond farewell. As you know, I have no smooth tagline to get myself out of these podcasts, so I'm just going to say, I don't think there's anything else I have to say. Hold on. Let me double check my notes. That's why I have them. I think that's it. I hope I didn't forget anything, but if I did, I'll try to make a note to bring it back up again next time on Cyber Track. Bye, you guys.